the bottom left-hand side, we got JasonBlade. And up top, ThatScar. Well, I've got a lot of work to do after this. I think I'm going to watch Tasha stream, but I need to start my spreadsheet. I've been slacking on that to try to determine which faction everybody's in. Because I'm going to win that investigation game, man. You know what? I might not win the events. I might not get the most points in the games, but I do want to try really hard on the investigation game. That part of it seems pretty fun. So obviously no mole rushing, right? Like, or what? You'd have to be such a cowboy to mole rush here. Like, okay, you can't sell your farms, man, but then you're stuck with that mole warren. So it's it would be crazy. I don't think we're gonna see moles at all, because moles really revolve around the selling mechanic. 7 farm warren from Scar, just playing it safe. I don't think he's gonna get aggressive with that or anything. Weird map here. At first glance, it does look better for ThatScar, but keep in mind the rush distances. So, obviously, I actually have a lot to say about this. Like, you know, this looks great in a vacuum. You know, 4 mills right there. I always call it a castle. I don't know why. Just like when you have like 4 mills and a square, a diamond, to me, that's the castle. So, nice castle for ThatScar here. But the problem is these two bases are on the low ground, and it would be really easy for Jason to abuse this high ground attack into them. And then this one is on the high ground, but it is like literally right here. I mean, we're going to be touching territories if we build that. So the rush distance is so small. And one thing that's really fun about the RNG with the maps in Tooth and Tail is you got to adjust. Like, I'm generally the kind of guy who likes to macro. You know, I'm not one of those, like, AFK 16 farms kind of guy. But I do like to, okay, let's get some tier 1 warrens, let's get a second, you know, that kind of stuff. But sometimes on maps like this, like, you really don't want to expand. Because if ThatScar starts expanding, spending some money on farms, like, the rush distance is so short, there really isn't much of a defender's advantage. And all it takes is a little bit of extra food for one player, and then they can snowball the fight and win the game. Oh, but okay, again, well, I didn't factor artillery cannon into all this analysis. And this is a pretty well-placed artillery. I kind of would have wished he would have put it right there on the corner, because keep in mind, you can't sell. And selling is also really important with defense, so ThatScar is never going to be able to move that artillery around. That's 180 bucks right there. That ain't cheap in this economy. You know, one base already, that's a huge investment. But that will let ThatScar get over that problem I was just talking about with expanding here. Now Jason's going to be in a really tough spot if he tries to attack into this. I think the right move from Jason is just to say, you know what? Enjoy your second base. I'll get my own second base. Especially with all that tier 1. Like, you are not going to win that attack. And Jason does take a second mill. I would have actually preferred one a little bit further away, because this is a great staging point for ThatScar here. Because he can kind of attack into this mill and just retreat slightly to be in range of that cannon. Owl on the way for ThatScar as well. ThatScar is an absolute madman. Ooh, Jason needs a scout. He needs a scout, and he sees it. Very important there for Jason. Knows the tier 3 is on the way. But it is the Owl, and the Owl's probably the least impactful tier 3 to just, like, rush in an early game. Like, you can kind of hunker down against one Owl. You know, you got 4 cams up there. Maybe you lose a couple tier 1 to the mice, but you'll be aight. It's not like the boar or something, or the fox. They'll just poke you to death. It's really when ThatScar can start affording Owl number 2 and 3 that it becomes more of a problem. Now the question is, does Jason really know it? Because like, he's technically seen it, but he saw it for just such a split second. Hopefully he does know. Yeah, and there's the wolf. If I'm Jason, I'm probably going to start really throwing some economy down on this second base and try to get ahead in this game in that regard. This is going to be a fun late game if we can get there. Nice denial there from Jason. Ooh, gonna stay on the front line for a little while here. Trying to just curb that line of staying out of the arty cannon range. Look at that, Jason just demolishing here. You gotta think about it though. I mean, ThatScar is so much money in tier 3 Warrens and that arty and the owl. I mean, ThatScar's real, like, boots on the ground army value right now is very, very small. But if ThatScar can kind of hold on for a little bit and make all the other... Such a problem, too, with the no selling. Like, now that we're past the 5-minute mark and the economies are going down, like, it's a real big mistake from ThatScar to build all these tier 3 Warrens. He's never going to be able to afford these tier 3 units. That's one thing you really got to think about in these no selling games. Is that's just $540 that's never going to do anything, because the squirrels and the chameleons are going to build first. And JasonBlade's in a similar spot with his wolf, but that's only one tier 3. ThatScar's got 3. But the artillery's still alive, but the problem is ThatScar just doesn't have an economy. And Jason's in a little bit of a similar problem with all his tier 1 here. I mean, he's got like, what, 8 tier 1 Warrens? And that's it. Jason actually just quits. I'm a little surprised there. I mean, I guess it was tough for him. Yeah, well, I think the problem was that the mice were just trading so well with the owl. So kind of funny, Jason got caught in a weird spot because he built too many tier 1, which weren't good against the mice or the artillery. And then ThatScar was in a weird spot because he built too many tier 3. But I think if Jason could have stayed in the game longer, maybe he could have come back. I don't know. It was tough. Jason just decides, you know what, don't worry about it. Let's just hop to the next game. Let's see if they've refined their no-selling tactic from here. In the bottom left, we have Jason, and in the top right, ThatScar with the toads. A unit we do not see very often these days. Tooth and Tail. Toads are a really interesting unit. I like toads a lot when they're balanced, but I'd rather them be too weak than too strong. Because toad metas can be super toxic, but it is fun when toads are relevant enough to where you want to mix them in there. And there actually is a lot of cool micro tricks you can do with toads or against toads that can make a big difference. I've seen games like Arrowloop comes to mind, like when toad metas were a thing, and like really trying to snipe down the toads, or, you know, sacrifice like one lizard into like 5 or 6 toads. You know, stuff like that can be really fun to watch. Toads and moles are probably like some of the most, what's the word I'm looking for? Like meta-defining units. Like if they're too strong. Like when moles are too strong, it's really bad. When toads are too strong, it's really bad. I don't know, lizards too, I guess, but lizards have actually been in a good spot for a long time now. I think lizards are great where they're at. A little bit underutilized, and I think that's just because, like, Squirrel Mole Skunk is pretty popular nowadays, or Squirrel Mole Cam. And those kinds of compositions just do really well against lizards. ThatScar gonna move out. There was a little bit of pre-8 farm warning going on. I didn't pay too much attention to. I was too busy thinking about toads. But ThatScar is going to push in and get a farm for free. Feels pretty good about that. And just going to... Look at that. Look at that play. Great play there from ThatScar. Jason could have thwarted that, but didn't quite have the squirrels in the right position. And ThatScar going right into a ferret. So that tier 2 Warren was seen by Jason. Meanwhile, Jason wants to get into his second base. Hopefully these players this time around are a little bit more careful to how many Warrens you commit to. I like this mix right now. Like 3 tier 1 into a tier 2. Maybe a 4th tier 1. But I don't think I'd go higher than that. like selling is it's just one of those things you really take for granted until you can't do it anymore. Because generally, like in the early game, you want a bunch of tier 1, and then you start building tier 2, and then big fights happen. You gotta go home and sell a couple warrants, keep producing what you can. Later on, you're mostly in all tier 2, all tier 3, very little tier 1. Depending on comps, I mean, 30 squirrels in the late game is a good comp in certain situations too. ThatScar gonna push up with Squirrel Toad Ferret. And I love seeing like wackier comps like this that aren't super meta because it puts your opponent in a weird spot where they don't exactly know how to play against it. And right now, ThatScar's just going to get value off the ferrets. Jason really should keep his squirrels back and try to push the ferrets back just with the falcon there. Loses a couple squirrels, but not the end of the world. Overall, ThatScar in a nice position in this game, but there's still a lot more tooth and tail to be played here. ThatScar is in the lead, but Jason can certainly still win this. And a good way to get ahead is definitely the farm inning here. However, you want to be careful. I like the cams. If I'm Jason, maybe it's so tough when you can't sell. I'm thinking double cam. I think double cam's really strong. No, gonna go for the Badger. That's risky. He's got no defense. He really doesn't want ThatScar to scout. He needs to keep his... The thing about this Badger is if ThatScar sees it, especially so fast, and he's going to, that is really rough for Jason, because you can't sell that Badger. You're stuck with it. I think Jason really needed to try to prevent that scout a little more by moving around his units and making them shoot the commander. Yeah, look at this. ThatScar says, okay, commits to a ton of tier 1. But if this doesn't work, it's going to be tough. When was Toads balanced? Toads were balanced back in the day, I feel like. Toads have gone through a lot of changes. They're definitely one of those units. Toads, Mines, and Moles probably the most changes, but here we go. ThatScar is just looking to overwhelm as JasonBlade's got 360 bucks, and look at those Toad connections, man. I'm telling you, Toads are a little underutilized, man. That clump of Toads just annihilated the tier 1. And that's going to be the game, too, as ThatScar saw that Badger. And again, if Jason could have prevented ThatScar from seeing that Badger and was able to sneak it out, maybe he could have won there. Alright, we've got one more match on our hands today, and then we are all going to go hang out with Big Pimpintosh and check out some more games. And then I've got some video editing to do, and I'll probably start working on my spreadsheets while I'm watching Toshcasts. And then Baldur's Gate 3. I haven't got to play it as much as I'd want to, but I'm really excited for it. I've been playing on Tactician mode as a Paladin. It's been a lot of fun. I'm old. I'm in my mid-30s, so I grew up playing Baldur's Gate 1 and Baldur's Gate 2 in the 90s and early 2000s. It's really cool to see Baldur's Gate 3 just absolutely slaying it. Larian Studios, super good. Dev team as well. The Divinity games are all great. But here we go. We've got ThatScar. We've got JasonBlade. We've got one more match of Tooth and Tail on our hands today. Baldur's Gate. Okay, here's a little trivia to tie this back in. Baldur's Gate is where I came up with the name Delphius. In the original Baldur's Gate in the late 90s, I needed a name for a paladin, and I thought Delphius sounded cool. So yeah, that's where I came up with Delphius, was playing Baldur's Gate 1 way back in the day. Any Delphius trivia for you there. Alright, so we have some fast warrants. And ThatScar trying to get something done here with the lizards. 2 is not enough. Kind of need a third one, especially the squirrel. Oh, well, I stand corrected. Oh, it was actually because that pig was not shooting at it, I think. You can actually do some weird stuff. I've never... I really should learn that because I do like lizard aggression, but you can use your commander to like lock pigs in certain spots so they can't hit the lizards. So ThatScar got a little bit of damage done, but Jason's okay. He did kind of hamper his own economy to do that. And ThatScar's actually being kind of greedy here, going for very fast skunks. And also, lizards aren't as good on defense. Jason knows all this, but Jason loses the commander as the squirrels rally in. Oh, that is rough. Oh, no. And ThatScar just cleans it all up absolutely for free. Feels bad, man. Come on, Jason, get a point on the board. He's going for Squizzard. That is a good comp. Not something we see as much nowadays. Oh, that mine there, too. See, this is great mine play by ThatScar. Kind of like, oh yeah, come chase me. Come chase me. My wife and I call this the lonely unicorn strategy. Oh, there it is. Because we used to play League of Legends. And she'd be Soraka as support, and I'd be like Vayne or somebody in the bush. And then she would bait them, right, to get in a bad position, and then I'd pop out and push them against the wall, kill them and all that. Oh, the lonely unicorn. So ThatScar kind of doing that there with the mine, trying to bait him in. Alright, so Squizzard from Jason actually is really good here. I think it's going to beat the Skunk Falcon Lizard. Jason with some of his own mines, a little too defensive there. I don't think mines are the best with Squirrel Lizard, because Squirrel Lizard is a very, like, advanced forward type of strat. Like, the mines pair a lot better with skunks or ferrets, where it's like, oh, chase me, you know? Or a fox or something like that, where you want them to try to chase your unit. But with Squizzard, you really just want to dive in. Here we go, Jason. Get in that boar! This could work. I'd like to see Jason win here. I mean, ThatScar's been playing very nice. Don't get me wrong, but it is always fun to root for the underdog. So ThatScar needs to scout this boar. Probably will. Okay, this time Jason did a much better job. You see how he prevented ThatScar from scouting? That was very important. So ThatScar did not get an early read on that boar like he did last game with the Badger. This time around, though, might be able to make it. No, not going to go all the way in. This area is just a minefield for both sides. Okay, now ThatScar's going to see it. Great scouting pattern there. Sees exactly what he needs to see. Saw the expansion, saw the boar. A little bit too late to do anything about the boar. Outside of, yeah, building in some falcons. I agree with that, because it's going to take 60 seconds. And he saw that the boar warren actually just finished, so it's about 50-ish seconds nowadays for a tier 3. They've always kind of tweaked with that. I think it's 50 seconds now. So we'll have those falcons up in time by when the boar gets there. And gonna do that gas strat. Ooh, Jason not moving his units. And yeah, he wants to get chased into this minefield here. And those lizards couldn't quite kill the skunks. Again, 4 skunks. I was talking about that earlier today, but 4 skunks is so much better than 2. Not even really because how much gas they put out, but just because how much HP they have. Like, that is a ton of HP to try to burn through. But speaking of burning through HP, the boar is here. However, it can't just leave it all by itself. Some pigeons are coming in to support it. Really needs something to kill those falcons. Wants to keep this boar alive, if possible. ThatScar trying to dunk into it. Oh, it's at 13 HP! I think the falcons get it. Okay, the falcons finally get it. Lots of falcons here in the sky. Really good comp, actually, from ThatScar. 4 skunk, 4 falcon against that boar push. And there it is, ThatScar gonna get it. 3-0. And that is it for the stream today. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. And once again, I want to shout out everybody else. I'll put links to all of this information on the Discord, but we've got Big Pimpin' Tosh on Twitch streaming. We've got Mochaccino on Twitch streaming, and then Evil Murloc, I believe, only streams on YouTube. But there's a ton of other content there if you check those out. I'll also link the Discord in the description of the videos. You can get in there and check out the VODs area to see everybody. But yeah, that's it, everybody. Take care, and we'll catch you next time.